So what springs to mind when it comes to you telling your own story?
I should have thought about this a bit more, shouldn't I? I'm not really one that likes talking about myself. I much prefer talking about other people.
Where do we go?
When we're seeing a little documentary about me, it can be a little bit sensitive, but I think it might be good insight for some people.
Like the way he walks, the way he talks.
Fantastic captain.
He's a big role model.
You know, he's just incredible. Niveau falar segredo.
I've always had to prove people wrong all through my life, and I don't think that'll ever go.
Mais une fois arrivé sur le terrain, c'est une autre personne.
He was kind of the step that I needed.
The stuff that he does, he passes on throughout the whole team. To be proud of the pitch and play with him.
On top of that, he's a great footballer. That makes him the perfect captain for Liverpool.
Hello everybody, welcome back to James Lawrence Allcott channel. I'm here with the director of the latest Nike Jordan Henderson documentary, which you can see on the Liverpool channel. Just exclusively on the Liverpool channel, Loz?
It is exclusively on the Liverpool channel. I think it'll be a BTS on my channel at some point, but I'm going to be on holiday. So that'll be out. And then there's other little bits here and there. But yeah, Liverpool channel.
So stick around now because we're going to have a little chat about it. Actually, do what you want, basically. There's a link in the description. You can go and check it out and watch it and then come back and watch this. But I've seen it already. We had a really lovely evening at Nike HQ, which I think that's my first question for you. And I don't know, I find myself doing this when I'm at these places. I want to kind of get to you and go, this is huge, mate, and I'm so chuffed for you, and because it was like, this is the captain of Liverpool at Nike's HQ. There's free drinks and popcorn. I think it was nachos as well. I didn't have any, but they were.
My dad did. He said it was a messy snack to have at a premiere.
Too dangerous for me, yeah.
It was pick and mix, though. So.
Your dad's a braver man than me. But I guess first and foremost, if we talk about the documentary itself, how was that evening? Have you sort of reflected on that? Because that was for you.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really strange one because obviously when you're making a documentary, you're making about a subject, right? But then for a long time, the subject didn't know it was being made about him because we were interviewing everyone else and sort of going, or he knew there was something being done, but he didn't know how big or how kind of ambitious we were being with it.
Right. And
like, we'd worked together before, like, how ambitious I want to be in all these things. And that's not me sort of bigging myself up. I mean, like,
no, it's a problem.
It can almost get away from me a little bit. And I'll go, and then the helicopter shot will like, and you'll be like, well, we don't have that budget, mate. So, and that's the way it works. And so I'll try to squeeze as much out of everything and, almost make as many compromises as possible to get as many, like, really just give that lemon every squeeze and get as much juice out of it as possible. And the strange thing was a premiere, and I've never had this before because I've never had a premiere. It was such a proud moment to walk out there and go, wow, like there's people who have come to see, not necessarily for me, but probably for Jordan and probably for Nike and probably for loads of other people, but they've come to see something that we've made. And that was another realization, was like, when you're making it, you're like, it feels like yours. And then I was like, no, wait a minute. This is like lots of different people have got a share in this. And that made it almost feel more special.
That's not true.
No, but there were other people there. But you know what I mean,
but it's yours. That's an interesting outlook, because actually most directors would be like, well, this is mine and I don't care.
Right, and I think to some extent, like, you have to tread that line almost the right way, right? You have to go, this is mine, and I know what I want to do with the vision. But then when you hand it off, it becomes other people's. So the marketing is someone else's. I was very strangely reminded on that night, it's Jordan Henderson's film. Like, we did 2 interviews with him. One we treated as like an initial interview once we knew it was going to become a bigger thing. And then we went, right, well, we've got another 2 hours with him over here. Let's go really in depth. And it's bizarre. We're going to his house in, wherever you want to call it.
Yeah, I can tell
and the exact address. And he is inviting us in and then going, okay, we'll set up over there or do this or do that. And after the interview, he then goes, will there be a screening anywhere or anything? And I was like, yeah, I'd imagine there'll be something down in London or something. He went, cool, let me know when it is. And I'm like, what was is it, like, why would we be watching this in the same room as each other? Right. Because other things you make, like, I made a documentary on a basketball player. We just handed it off and went, yeah, he's in America or whatever. And this, we had to sit in the room on that night and go.
Well, that's it. So I had a lovely view of it where I was able to watch. I was watching it, and so about halfway through it, I thought, oh God, Jordan Henderson's here, isn't he? I should watch his reaction to these lovely moments because really, I mean, the best opportunity of it is an opportunity for kind of him to sort of smell the flowers, like whilst he's still there and still integral and all those things. There's always that talking point about, is he good enough, all that nonsense. But he is also getting to, latter stages of his career. So, and the team hasn't sort of broken up yet. So to hear from Trent and Alisson and Firmino and so many people, it's huge. It's a huge moment for him to do at a great time of the year where it's like, it's not like, well, we've still got 10 games to go. It's the end of the season. So he's got that opportunity to reflect on it. And when I watched him, it was fascinating to see him sort of he really did light up when his teammates spoke about him. Trent in particular, there's something really special in terms of their relationship, which you dive into brilliantly in the doc. Sat next to him, were you trying to go, you sort of trying to do the eye? Well,
I couldn't sit in the room. I you know me, like,
you didn't want to watch it.
I'll bury myself into an edit and I'll sort of go, and also we had no editor for this. We just didn't have the budget. So I will bury myself in it mentally. And then every now and again, I'll go, all right, I'll just spend 3 days here and I'll just do it. And then so you get so close to it that then you go, okay, I can't watch when other people watch this.
Yeah.
And so I didn't. And then we got there and I thought I'd sit and I'd be there with Flu and my kid and my dad. And I just couldn't sit in the room. I just had to sit at the back and watch. And
were you watching it or were you watching people then, if you're honest?
I was watching people because there's also, you get beats where I go, that's the reaction I wanted there. That's the reaction I wanted there. Did that get a laugh? Did that get, an or whatever it is?
Yeah.
And I'm proud to say most of them did. And at the end, there is a big sort of crescendo of the whole piece, which kind of builds to quite an emotional moment, which was what we were trying to work out is how do you finish a documentary where the person isn't finished their career, like, they're still in it. So, and we were like, is that going to be emotional? And then Jordan gets up on stage and he's sort of like, he's got a bit of a blocked nose and he's clearly been rubbing his eyes a little bit. And I was a bit like, has he been crying or is that hay fever or like, is he actually emotional? Like
the nachos.
And you don't want to say, like, I feel so grateful to like, this is a dream. Do you know what I mean? Sure. Documentary is what I want to make. And I want to do that. And, over the last few years, I began to maybe feel a little less relevant, a little less like, maybe people thought, oh, maybe this guy has got something good in him here. And I'd started to not believe in my own dreams and my own, like, what I wanted to do. And then, I had a very public sort of downfall in a sense. And then that felt like that was a full stop. It was about, all right, cool. Then you just make the best of whatever you've got here and give up on that bit. Because that's over. Like, you're not getting that now. That you need some good will towards you in order to get to where you want to go. And there's no goodwill, or there's very little goodwill. So, and you need to get further away from the blast of that. And then to get to this point and go, oh, right, like, yeah, we're making a documentary on the Liverpool captain was so monumental for me. Like, it felt like such validation, not in the sense of like the public being like, oh no, we love this guy, but like, that you are capable, you are able to do this, like you can do all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Meant like it was honestly life-changingly
do you feel like you've kind of, because
refreshing.
It's so funny, isn't it, that obviously you're living what you went through last year but whereas I'm like, well, I don't think of you in any bad way. So I'm like, I just get on with the rest of my life, and I don't think that's right. A problem. I forget that you're still kind of going through that. Do you feel like this kind of allowed you're getting off your knees a bit here, like in terms of your perception of what you think people's perception is of you, or
right,
or
and that's part
itself.
Right, and that's part of it. Is I think it's again, most people are here to talk about Jordan, so I'll talk about that. But it really is. I felt at one point oh, right, like you've fucked this here. Like you've spent a lot of time working really hard to try to, build a reputation as someone who does this, this, and this. And then you've messed it up with one live stream, or you've messed it up with a couple of comments.
Yeah.
And now people can just do that. It doesn't make you a victim. It doesn't make me a victim of anyone. I'm not trying to place myself in a victim's place. I can own whatever it is that I did and those kind of things. But then there also comes a point where you go, okay, you've been through that. Now, how do you move on with your life?
Sure.
Do you move on and just go, cool, we put that in the past? Or do you move on and go, yeah, you know what? Screw that. And I felt, and I weirdly began to take on a lot of the criticism too much, I think. And it began to like really have a massive impact on me. And maybe that is what the people who originally tried to do that wanted. And maybe to some extent they succeeded. And so to get to this point where you're making a documentary, in anyone's normal life, that is huge. But to me, it felt like such an emotional, huge, seminal moment. And it felt like such a wow. To then have Liverpool captain, to then have all your mates there who have sort of watched and been there for you and been those kind of things, that like, it leaves me in a space where I felt so grateful. I felt so, refreshed by it. And it made me just want to go, yeah, like let's do another one of these. I'll sit down, do the edit for hours and do all that stuff. You realize how important those dreams were. Like they were a real dream.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's I think as well with you think of the pandemic and stuff like that, and the availability to do whatever you wanted to do. I guess that's what I thought being there. I had a moment where I was thinking. So first of all, I thought it's a great reminder for you of what makes you sing, like what makes you feel great.
Yeah, right.
What you get excited about truly is that kind of content. But I remember thinking when they asked you up and then you start talking about it, I remember in an incredibly shallow way, but also a way that we're all fighting for. And, from my own point of view, I was thinking, for me, the dream is like, if I get to a point where I'm like on TV a lot and I'm sat there like a proper presenter,
right?
I'll be like, I can see it, like it's kind of happening. And so for you, I was thinking that when they go, and there's the director and Glenn come up and you ask a few questions, you get asked about how something's made with people watching, and you've got a mic in your hand. As shallow as that is the kind of thing you've thought about when you're younger, going, I'll get to a point where we'll be at this festival or that, and they'll ask me to talk and they'll ask my opinion on something. And again, it's a bit for the ego, but it's something that you probably, sometimes we need that, right?
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, and I completely agree with you. And
confidence, more than the ego.
Maybe not to mince it. Like people in the media, there is an element of ego to it. Like, of course, you have to have an element of ego to move forward in these things, because if, of course, there's an ego driving a person who goes, you're going to want to hear this opinion I've got. Like,
but it's more about broadly aesthetic. The fact that I know that's what a director does, and I'm sat there, and then I can see myself sat here. It's that as much as anything.
100%. But it's also then that you feel you've made something that people want to watch, or that you've picked a subject that people want to interact with. And Jordan Henderson is quite an interesting subject. Like, I know some people go boring, it's Jordan Henderson, he's very cliched or whatever. We really try to get beyond that and explore what makes a cliche, why do people think certain things about these guys? We tried to unpack a bit of what was going on around him and essentially try to explore the cliche that was around him. And that was quite hard, to be honest. It's quite tricky to do. Yeah.
I asked a question and I thought his answer was really interesting. And then I remember thinking, I want to ask you about it.
Right.
Because the few things I want to talk about in this video as well is, so first of all, kind of your creative process for it, because I think people are always really, really interested in that. But to kind of get through the Jordan bit, because I think you're right with the cliche as well, because it is what we kind of learn broadly is that he is what you think he is, and that's pretty special in itself. And it's something that you can align with and really appreciate. And it's okay to like Jordan Henderson because it's for good reason. But I asked him about, there was so much discussion constantly in the doc because it's him.
Bit incessant, wasn't it? In the end?
About leadership, though. But it was about leadership.
Yeah.
It was all about, there's so much about leadership, and that's his superpower, it feels like. And so I asked him about management. And And he was there was a sort of wry
Quite
smile.
coy.
Yeah. I think the overall feeling was that I think he knows that maybe the healthy thing for him would be to sort of step away from it a little bit. But actually the truth is that he won't be able to step away from it. Having spent the time that you spent with him, do you see him as a manager?
Yeah, I do. I think the main reason I see him as a manager is because he seems like he's very observant, I think, for a start. And I think he's got a slightly steely quality to him. The only thing I'd say is he's a man of few words sometimes. But he does read the game very well. He does seem to have, he has excellent relationships with all the people around him. And what's great about him is he isn't one of those players where it's like, well, I was amazing, so you better be amazing for me. Yeah. Like I said, he's got this kind of crossover with every other player where they begin to see, I can understand why you respect this guy. You know, I respect him because of his outlook on this. I respect him because of this aspect of his game. And he's clearly able to make relationships with other people. The only thing I'd say is, I think he's different to Alan Shearer, but in interviewing him, there were sort of reminders of that northeastern kind of guy who's, carved out of different stuff. And it made him not distant, but he almost doesn't, I almost still can't quite put it into words. It's not that he doesn't want to get dirty with you, because I think he will go into what makes things difficult, but he will. I think that it's quite messy. Like people and players can have quite messy lives, right? And I think Klopp and other managers seem to have that transcendent ability to deal with that mess. And I think if Jordan wants to go into management, he would have to up that leadership to becoming more than a figurehead and become more accessible, which is, I think, what his journey is about becoming more accessible as a person. He says at the start of the documentary, he's quite closed off. He wants to deal with stuff himself. I think that's where I see him going if he is, and probably will become a great manager, is opening up and not only maybe showing a bit more of himself, but also therefore being able to have other people reflect and connect back to that. What I meant to say.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think if you talk about that Alan Shearer element, I think what I was going to say is that it's an understanding of it's sort of broad understanding of this is the state of play. So so when you've answered the question or whatever it might be, like there's nothing deeper than that. This is how you behave, or whatever it might be, and that can come off as cold. Sometimes. Exactly.
It could, but then that it isn't. There's more to him than that, and that's what I found quite interesting about trying to unpack it. And essentially, I found that quite interesting in the Q&A. Is I think, obviously as a director, you almost want less people to want to ask a question because you go, well, we've answered all those questions. But obviously, people will and maybe also want it to cause more questions. But I do feel that some people got that insight into what it is like to try to get an answer from a player that you're almost looking for. And that's what I found quite interesting is Nike, it's essentially, this is a commercial piece, Nike went, what's your plan? And I was like, well, we've got to work out I've got to hear what he has to say first. I can't just go, Jordan will then tell us how he's this, and this. It's like a documentary doesn't unfold in a commercial way, unfolds in a
it's dangerous, that, isn't it? It's dangerous to go,
you're committing.
We're going down this road. Like I spoke to Steve Crossman, who does the radio on the BBC, did an amazing podcast documentary series called the Hurricane Tapes. And I think I did the process with him. Yeah, I did the process with him and his producer. And he was saying the thing with stuff like that, the most dangerous thing to do is to go in and going, oh, we're going here.
Absolutely.
Because you're going to miss out on the story.
Yeah, and you also close yourself off to everything else, and it's like writing an essay or a dissertation and going, my conclusion is this. It's like, well, why don't you leave yourself open to what you can find and ask some open-ended questions? And I think that's where, maybe I feel a bit old now for this, but I'm still learning how to make a documentary and still learning how to get the best answers out of certain people. And essentially so the main kind of body of the questions got asked to the players on kit launch day. And so they would come in, have their photos taken in the kit, and then they'd be in the kit and come and sit down in our comfy chair in a little hidden corner of the room. That was a really loud room of like photo shoots. There was a bus in the middle of the room, right? And the guy who was the bus driver, because they were going to do a shoot on the bus as a Liverpool away day.
Right.
And they got on the bus, but the bus driver insisted every 1 hour running the bus for 8 minutes to make sure the battery remained on. And we went, could you do that when we're not doing interviews?
For the love of God.
For the love of God. So then what he did was, he'd almost wait for us to do the interviews and then start running the bus.
Yeah, of course.
So there's 4 minutes of Virgil van Dijk giving an answer, but with a in the background. So so that's a real challenge. And then you're trying to get good answers out of them.
Yeah.
And some of the players are turning up and going, what's this for? And some of the players are turning up and like a couple of them walked in and went, it's for Hendo, I'll do it. Whereas a couple of them are like, I don't normally do interviews. So they walk in and go, for Hendo, right? Yeah, cool, sit down. All right, cool. What questions have you got? And some of them, all of them gave great answers. But the one thing that I thought was like, worked really well for us, like a few of their eyes lit up when we went, answer in your native language of whatever, when you're talking about Jordan. And a few of them just went, oh, right, great. And then they clicked in and we got some really nice answers based on the fact that these people could speak in a much more relaxed way.
Yeah.
And I guess that sort of worked for me. Maybe it was a bit heavy-handed, but it kind of works in the doc for me, I think.
No, I mean, I remember you chatting to you about that, and I was like, oh, this is the bit. I was like, this is the bit where they do the language. So I thought it was really nice, especially like, because you had some people who, like Virgil van Dijk, for example, speaks in Dutch, and we know he speaks English well, so he doesn't need to do that. But it was obviously like part of the piece and the idea of the piece. In terms of how you put it together and your journey in terms of becoming, not becoming, you are a documentary maker. I always broadly think that your style is you like more. You like as much as possible, and then you'll kind of find a way instead of guiding it. Was that the case going into this one, and then you'll start to pick up, establish a story in your mind once you've got as much as you can get? Oh, what was your process? Because I know it was quite, like you say, there's some elements there that weren't exactly how you would wish, the kit launch element of it, and how long you get with people and stuff like that. So like, how, for people that would be watching this thing and I want to do this kind of thing, and how does he do these kind of things? My view on you and your style is that it's like, give me as much as I can, and then I will whittle it down, have fun with it, and go down little routes, and it's all a bit sort of experimental as you're editing it. Is that correct?
It's definitely correct. It's become more of like a self-criticism though, or more like a reflection of not wanting to only be like that, or sort of like James is right. I really love to just get as much as possible and cast the net as far and wide as we can go. But we also had a budget, and it's like, if you certain things you've got a budget and you can make it stretch. Certain things we're like, okay, we're about 20 interviews in here. Maybe it's time to start wrapping this up. You got your arms around this stuff, but it's also, I guess for me, it's what I learned is about having that foresight to get beyond the initial questions and, really be able to get into the weeds with someone very, very quickly. And that was kind of the tricky element of it, was how can we bypass that element of, how are you today? How are you feeling? Tell me about Liverpool. Tell me about this. Tell me about that. How can we expedite that process and make it as quick as possible? And we got, 5 minutes with a couple of people. We got about 7 minutes with Jurgen Klopp. We got, like 8 minutes with Trent. And we had to like maximize that time.
That's so stressful.
And then relax them in that time. Yeah. And it sort of worked like, to be completely frank, like Virgil van Dijk had seen there were 50 questions on the, on our question sheet. And he thought he was coming in to answer all 50. But we just sent 50 possible questions over that we would ask player X, player Y. Does the club have any issues with any of these 50 questions?
Yeah.
But he saw all 50. So I felt a little bit like the way that he walked in was almost a bit reticent to be in the interview, maybe. And then when he got in, he went, oh, right, this is what you're doing. So it's as much about prep as it is anything else. And so, the more I do it and, the more I make documentaries, the more I learn about the importance of the process of doing it and not following other people's process, but you can only learn what your process is through doing your process and working out what is successful and what is not. And that for me was what was key in this, is like, I learned more and more about the process as I went and what I want to be able to get what I want. Because also what we had and the balance that we had to find in this documentary was fulfilling what a brand want, but also a brand that come to you and go, we want something that's going to be a bit, it's not going to just be a cliched but simple football answers here. We want it to be a bit more human. We want people to maybe cry or feel a bit emotional. It's not really the kind of thing you get when you go to a Nike video. You'll get something that's inspirational, uplifting. And then to have to then pitch that to them and send a deck where we go, and here's how we're going to do that. We're in uncharted. I'm not saying we're like going to the bottom of the sea to go and find the Titanic, but we're in uncharted territory for a brand who go, we want to try this. We want to be honest about this, this, and this. And we want to talk about mental health and, allyship and racism and the NHS. Like, when's Nike ever had a bit about the NHS in a documentary before, Like, that was our tricky bit, was you go in with all these preconceptions, and this from interviewing your managers and stuff. Or you do the lower league football stuff, right? All that stuff. What I mean by that is, if you put that together as one piece of work, you could walk in and go, right, in your mind, you're going, I remember what Manish did on BBC lower league stuff. Now, time to make that. Like, you fit into, I'm serious. So you fit into these, the received knowledge from other people. You go, and so you essentially go, it's a bit like when people come on the show beforehand, they're like, yeah, cool, let's have a bit of Nando's, let's sit down and do this. Anyway, how's your team? Well, the boy's very disappointed at the moment, and I've got to say, I think, and you're a bit like, mate, we were having a lovely chat 2 seconds ago. And you do the same as a documentary maker. So to resist the urge to just fit in, and essentially I'm a bit of a people pleaser. So I want to kind of make people feel at ease. And when someone goes, will this be part of the documentary? I'll be like, yeah, absolutely it is. The more I do it, the more I go, actually, no, I need to be really comfortable with not being comfortable that other people don't get my vision, the idea.
You've got to be because selfish.
Yeah. And also I've got to be comfortable with the fact that other people are going, hold on a minute, what? Like, how does that work? Because, I don't have a storyboard artist. I've got my own keynote or whatever it is, a PowerPoint. I put it together and then I go, cool, let's see what you think of that. I don't have 100 people around me. So until I get to that level, which is a good goal, I have to, be comfortable with people going, this guy really capable of this? Like, is this really going to turn out like that? Like, we're really going to get an emotional reaction to that? And also, I'll always know that there is another shot I want to add or another edit I want to do, or I would have loved another month on it to edit it. I edited that whole doc in 2 weeks. So, that there's so many different little bits where you compromise along the way, but you just want to make sure you compromise with yourself, not with other people,
So last...
Didn't answer your question at all, really, did it?
No, you did. You always do. So first of all, I've got so many questions, but I'm aware that...
This is what I did with Jordan.
Yeah. Do you... So what's a bit that you like and what's a bit that you don't like about it? Because that's the thing. Sorry, let me project for a second. I feel like this is the start for you.
Right. Yeah.
Or a new start, maybe, and that's coming back to what we were talking about earlier. It feels
nailed
like a
that.
Start for you.
Yeah.
So, and also knowing you, I know there'll be bits that you'll not be a fan of, and there'll be bits that you're like, oh no, I like that. That's cool. So, I guess first of all, do you feel like it is a new start for you? Which I know is a dangerous question and a scary one to answer.
Yeah.
And then also, like, kind of, what's the strength and a weakness of both you within this project and how you want to kind of, I guess, be better as time goes on?
Yeah, absolutely a new start. Like, or maybe, yeah, it is. And like, I was really, the doc I made for Nike and Jordan the first time, I didn't even really announce it because I was so nervous about what people's reaction would be. And I was so nervous about the way that people would see it or go, what the hell is this guy doing a basketball documentary for? Like, no one cares what you think about that. And then the second time I did it, I was more scared because I was more scared about Nike seeing negative public reaction to, you let this guy who hates charity football matches or whatever it is that I think about him do a documentary. You thought this guy was worthy of that. And they hadn't seen all the meetings we'd had, or the effort we put in, or the legwork we put in. And I'm not saying I do harder work than someone who works in an office or someone who works in, it's very enjoyable, great work to do. But it takes it's a lot of energy. And like, you know, my wife looked after our kid way more than she should in this time. Like, there's plenty of other sacrifices that you make along the way. So yeah, there was that. But then when you sit down, you start to edit it and you start to send people little clips. Like, I think I remember sending you like little bits of like Trent or Hendo or I think it was Klopp or something like that. I'm going, oh, actually, yeah, like I think I can see something coming here. Like the flowers start to grow. And then when you get to a point where you're at the end of, and you build the end of your documentary and you bridge the start and the end with like these little pieces, I'm really proud of the end because I didn't know how to end it. And we asked him, I think, a good question, which is like a nice sort of branded bit, but is also gives him a chance. You can sort of see this glint in his eye when we talk to him. And I quite like that. And then it's quite emotional just before that. So there's like a bit of an emotional sort of, there's a lovely comment from a couple of people and then him. And then it goes to nice music. And I'm like, well, that ticks all my boxes. And then there's a lovely bit with Trent where Trent just, it's probably a clip we'll put in. He basically goes, I don't think I'd be where I am without Jordan.
That's the best I've ever seen Trent speak.
Yeah.
Best I've ever seen Trent speak. Because I think he's growing as an individual. You know, he's feeling established.
Absolutely.
But also,
and not only that, he's learning. Yeah, like he's learning how to answer questions. And he's learning how to, like, he really, and at the start of that answer, he takes about 10, we even cut that down, it takes about 15 seconds where he just goes, because the question is something like, from the, I literally get, because he walked into the interview, is funnily enough, it was so close. So I literally like, it's as far as I'm away from this laptop, and he goes, this is intimate, isn't it? And I was like, yes, it really is. And then I went, we get to the end of the interview and obviously we go, now I really want something like, and I went, I don't want your cliched football answer. I want something from the heart, like something you really feel about Jordan. And he sat in silence and I could see him like thinking, and you can sort of see his eyes kind of working it out. And then we didn't edit that at all. Like we just let it run. Nice. And every other bit in the documentary, we had to edit out an or an R or an There's just none of that in that answer. So it feels like it's sort of coming from a very pure place, really. And that was my favorite bit, because also there's no cutaways. There's light piano underneath it. And it's just him essentially just saying like, this guy. Yeah. And it feels insightful it felt insightful to me. And I feel like there's moments where when you finish an interview with a player and they walk out and they sort of, the door, like there wasn't even doors, there wasn't even walls. It was basically just big soundboards that we put black draping over. The black draping soundboards close and everyone just sort of goes,
no,
that's really good. And you're just like, and other people go, like normally I'm listening I'm not listening, so I'm concentrating on the camera, but that was really good. And you're just like, that was good, that bit.
That is I agree. That is the buzz of all of this, isn't it? Like it's like, because you have it when I do my tiny little lower league pathetic interviews with managers, it's the same. It's the same thing where you say the same thing at the end. You either go, that was all right, wasn't it? Or you go, all right, was that all right? That was all right, wasn't it? It'll be somewhere along. Yeah, that was good. We got some good bits though, didn't we? Like it was,
right.
Yeah.
And
it's
not
like categorical, like we've got, that was really good, wasn't it? And that's a great moment for you.
But and obviously then that sort of, you go, okay, that's a good minute. But then you go, well, there's 29 more of those. And you're like, okay, how do we make all these minutes? How do we keep people to that point? Like, so I've learned a lot. And again, like I've learned, I'm nowhere near as good at it as I maybe thought. And, I'm not progressing nearly as quickly as maybe I thought I was. And maybe I felt, when the only way you can learn this stuff is by doing it. And, you can read as many theory books and go, yeah, I'd make a great documentary if I ever got the chance. But what I realized was I was so fearful of becoming that person who other people behind his back would go, he would have been so good if he could have just done that. I felt I started to become that person and started to become that guy who went, yeah, that opportunity sort of passed him by and he never quite got there, did he? And so that felt like validation, or it felt like the start of something again. And it felt a little, and I guess I feel a little bit like I kind of hope it sort of wins some people over, or they sort of go, oh yeah, maybe I should listen, or maybe I should see what's going on there again.
I think more importantly, I think you've won yourself over a little bit more than
totally,
others,
yeah.
Because I think ultimately you need to. It can't be about everyone else, and morons will continue to exist, sadly. And on that note,
that's the problem. Is it's been a very self-reflective year, and I also realized when you're making a documentary, you need to be quite introspective, but not maybe going through your own shit sometimes. Like you need to be a bit like able to. You realize why documentary makers and filmmakers appear quite sort of level is because they almost have to be in order to get through this process. You have to be quite a level person and able to channel many different things. So you can't have a kind of up and down tumultuous life in that same way. Or maybe you can, you probably can, but you understand why so many people take that route. I'll put it that way. And I don't know, this is my dream. I want to make documentaries. That's a job I really badly want. So I'm hoping that people see it and that some of the comments go, bloody hell, this guy should make another one of these. Not Jordan Henderson too, but something like that. And that's what is interesting is you finish the doc and then you go, oh, I've got some more conclusions we could put into. Maybe there is another. Maybe there's an addendum. I don't know.
That's always going to be the way, I think, sadly. But mate, delighted for you, mate. I think it's a real moment. I think it's a great starting point. And congrats.
He's a great player.
And he's
a really good player.
And a nice bloke. Clearly a nice bloke. You can tell.
It also brought about an appreciation for him because there was a great thing we did where we got, and we've never done this before. I've never done this before. We sent a camera crew to focus just on him for a whole game.
Oh yeah,
and that was great.
Oh, those shots are amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So you remember player cam on Sky, and it used to just focus on one player. This is mental. Like you see him having little chats with Sadio Mane, going, "You going to go to Bayern?" And then obviously not during the Watford game, but you see him having little chats with Sadio Mane or little chats with Gomez or Virgil or all these people, but also how he's just telling people this needs to go there, or when they score a goal, everyone's celebrating, but in the huddle on the way back, he's got Matip over and he's going, "Come a little bit closer to me." So there's a great goal and there's this good reaction. And then instantly he's like, all right, so back there. There's one shot we didn't put in because we couldn't put it in, but it's him doing a pass to Jota, and Jota doesn't make the run, and you just see him go, oh, fuck.
Yeah, really amazing.
But also that Jota totally acknowledges that and he himself goes, yes, sorry, didn't mean like that. That's terrible. But it's just funny to watch. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
it's
yeah.
So interesting to see a person go through that and go on that journey in a football match. It's so weird.
So I'm guessing some of those bits might be in the behind the scenes, which would be on your channel. If people don't know about Loz's channel, Laurence Mckenna, you've obviously got your Lozcast one, which has got some great pieces on it. But Laurence Mckenna is the one that you kind of like uploading on a lot of
the football stuff.
Great.
Yeah.
So so that'll be there. And yeah, congrats, mate. I'm delighted.
Thank you. It was you came for Jordan Henderson, you got a lot of me, but you go watch some Jordan Henderson now because it's all talking about him for 39 minutes.
That doc is in the link is in the description, and me and Loz will be doing Dream Teams. I know we said this previously, but I had a child the next day, so is that a good enough excuse? I think it might be.
You look good for it.
Thanks, yeah. Well, that's why I keep it here. It's all.
Right, good. Yeah.
That Dream Teams is now recorded. It wasn't before. It's now recorded. That'll be coming out soon. So make sure you check that out when it happens. The way you won't miss that is by hitting the bell, subscribe to the channel, and all that good stuff. Right, I'm off to eat. Goodbye, Loz.